You ever had someone mess with your property and think there won't be consequences? Let me tell you about the time my HOA president, let's call her Karen, padlocked my ranch gate without warning. But don't worry, by the end of this story, she's the one paying me just to enter. No joke. It all started when I finally bought my dreamland. 10 acres of peaceful, open space just outside of town. A mix of rolling hills and flat pasture, scattered with mesquite trees and wildflowers. I'd worked 2 jobs for years just to save enough to buy that slice of heaven. It wasn't some mansion in the suburbs, but to me it was perfect. My plan was simple: build a small barn, raise some chickens and goats, maybe a horse down the line, and enjoy a quiet life away from the buzz of the city. The property had one entry point, an old iron gate at the front, originally set up decades ago. It was rusty but solid. I spent the first weekend sandblasting it, painting it jet black, and reinforcing the hinges with heavy-duty bolts. I even poured new concrete for the gate posts. It wasn't fancy, but it was strong, practical, and very much mine. Now, the property technically fell under an HOA, not one of those strict suburban nightmares with daily fines and uniform lawns, but an old association formed back when the area was more rural. It mostly managed some shared maintenance and lighting for the original houses down the hill. I'd been told the ranch properties like mine were basically left alone. We paid a token fee every year and that was it. At least, that's how it used to be. Things changed when Karen got elected president. Karen moved into the neighborhood about 8 months before this whole thing kicked off. She came from California, wore yoga pants like armor, and believed the world revolved around rules, appearances, and homeowner standards. Within weeks of taking over, she started sending out letters about everything: long height, paint colors, even approved bird feeders. Everyone in the area started whispering her name like it was some local curse. I didn't think much of it. After all, my land was technically outside the manicured circle of the original HOA community. I wasn't putting up pink flamingos or hosting raves. I kept to myself, didn't blast music, and even helped the local school one weekend by letting them use part of my field for a science project. But apparently, I still wasn't invisible enough. One Friday morning, I was working on my barn roof when I saw her SUV crawl down the dirt road and pull up to my gate. She stepped out, heels sinking into the gravel, sunglasses perched on her head, clipboard in hand like some HOA executioner. She didn't even greet me. "This gate doesn't meet HOA guidelines," she said, tapping her pen on the metal. "It's not on the approved list." I blinked. "Excuse me. It's not on the approved gate list. HOA guidelines require all entrance gates to follow the uniform aesthetic. This rattan monstrosity doesn't qualify." I couldn't help but laugh. "Karen, this is a working ranch. That monstrosity keeps coyotes out and animals in." Her mouth curled in that polite but salty smile. "If you refuse to comply, the board may take action." "You go right ahead," I said, waving her off. "This is private property. You can't dictate what kind of gate I use." She turned on her heel and left without another word. I figured that was the end of it. Just another puffed-up HOA Karen trying to flex authority where she had none. I didn't think twice about it until the next Monday morning. I pulled up in my truck and saw something that made my jaw drop. My gate was chained shut, not with my lock. It was a thick silver padlock I didn't recognize, looped tightly through a chain that wasn't mine. A red tag hung off the side that read, "Locked pending compliance review." I thought it was a joke, a prank. Maybe someone was messing with me. But no, there was a notice zip-tied to the post. It was a letter from the HOA signed by Karen herself, stating that due to non-compliance with aesthetic guidelines, the gate had been secured until a solution could be discussed. Let me repeat, that she padlocked me out of my own land. I was furious, not just annoyed, blood-boiling mad. I had animals inside. I had tools locked in my barn. I had food stored in the shed fridge. And she locked me out like it was some kind of gated community spat. I called a number on the notice. She picked up after 2 rings. "Karen, you better explain what the hell you just did." I growled. "I warned you," she said, calm and smug. "You refused to comply. The board voted to take action." "There is no board. It's just you and your friend Peggy with a printer. It's official enough," she snapped. "If you want access again, I suggest you come to the next HOA meeting and discuss the changes." "Access, lady. This is my land." She hung up. I stared at that padlock for a long time, thought about cutting it right then and there, but something in me said no, not yet. See, I was raised by a family that believed in one golden rule. Don't get even, get smart. So I took a deep breath, walked around to the back of the property, and climbed over the fence. Took me half an hour, scratched up my arm on some brambles, but I made it in, and I sat down on my porch with a notebook and started planning. If Karen wanted to play games, I'd play back, but I'd play by the law. Because the one thing you should never do is underestimate someone who's got more patience than you and 10 acres to work with. The same afternoon I got back onto my land by crawling through the back fence. I drove straight to the county office. If Karen wanted to test boundaries, I was going to make sure I knew exactly where every single one of mine lay legally, financially, and historically. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to bury her in the facts. At the records department, I requested the original land surveys, deeds, and anything related to the HOA's jurisdiction. Turns out, the HOA had authority over the original development, about 30 homes, built close together on quarter-acre plots. My property, however, was part of an older agricultural tract sold separately years before the HOA was even formed. In other words, my land technically predated the association. I paid a small maintenance fee out of courtesy and waterline access, but there were no enforceable architectural or aesthetic controls on my parcel. Then came the bombshell: the dirt road leading up to my gate. It wasn't public, and it wasn't part of the HOA's maintained assets. It was a private easement owned by me, maintained by me, and used by others purely out of informal habit, meaning, not only was the gate legally mine, but the road Karen used to access the greenbelt trail behind the properties, also mine. I owned the only vehicle access route. Armed with this, I returned home and took pictures of everything: the locked gate, the red tag, the chain marks, even the fresh tire tracks. I documented the date, time, and location. Then I called the sheriff's non-emergency line and filed a report. The deputy who came out was polite but unsure how to handle it. "She's from the HOA, right?" he asked, eyeing the padlock. "Doesn't matter. She doesn't own the gate or the road. This is a lock on private property." "That's called trespassing," he shrugged. "I'll write it up." That was all I needed. I wasn't expecting them to throw handcuffs on her, but now there was a paper trail, proof. And when someone like Karen tries to push things further, having the law already on your side is worth its weight in gold. Next, I got to work on phase 2. I wasn't going to just remove the lock and go back to the way things were. Oh no. I wanted to make sure this never happened again. I hired a contractor friend of mine, someone I trust from my years working construction, and we installed a brand new automatic steel gate. It was state-of-the-art, remote control access, reinforced, bars, solar-powered backup, and industrial-grade hinges. But the best part, a hidden strip of retractable tire spikes, right under the gravel in front of the gate, fully legal, clearly marked with signage, and configured to lower automatically only when someone entered the correct code. And guess who had the only code? I gave access to the local fire department, emergency services, and the mail carrier. That was it. Everyone else had to request access, including Karen. I didn't have to wait long. The following week, I heard the buzz of voices outside my new gate. I stepped out on my porch with a fresh cup of coffee and binoculars. There she was, standing by her Lexus, arms folded, glaring at the steel fortress in front of her like she'd seen a ghost. Her problem was simple. The HOS landscapers had been cutting through my road for years to access the back trails and common greenbelt area behind the houses. They'd never asked permission, they just used it because it was faster than going around. Now, with the gate locked and spikes in place, there was no shortcut. She rang the call box. I let it buzz. Then she rang again. Finally, I picked up. "This is my land," I said calmly. "Why won't the gate open?" she barked. "Because you don't have access. I need to get through. The landscapers have to mow the trail, and you can't block HOA common ground." I smiled, sipping my coffee. "I'm not blocking anything. I'm securing private property. If the HOA wants to cross my road, they'll need permission and a legal agreement." "You're being ridiculous. I warned you when you padlocked my gate. Actions have consequences." "Karen," there was a long pause. Then she said the words I'd been waiting for. "What do you want?" "I want a few things. First, a written admission that you padlocked my property without legal authority. Second, a signed agreement acknowledging that the road and gate are mine. And third, if you want to use the road moving forward, $200 a month maintenance and access fee that covers the gravel, gate, upkeep, and general wear." She exploded. "You're trying to extort the HOA." "No," I said calmly. "I'm offering a private land access agreement, entirely legal. Or you can reroute through the long trail like everyone else. She hung up. Predictable. But a few days later, I got a call, not from her, but from the HOA's lawyer. Polite, smooth-voiced, clearly trying to walk things back. He asked for a copy of the documents I'd mentioned. I sent him everything: the land deed, easement records, sheriff report, photos, and a draft access agreement. 3 days after that, I had a signed contract in my inbox. With it came the first month's payment, $200, paid from the HOA's general fund. Now every month, like clockwork, Karen personally delivers a check in an envelope marked private road maintenance. She doesn't speak, doesn't smile, just drops it in my locked mailbox at the gate and drives off slowly over the spike strip, making sure her tires stay intact. Sometimes I sit on my porch with my boots up and watch her go by. She doesn't look at me, but I wave anyway, of spite, but out of satisfaction. Because here's the thing, people like Karen think they can muscle others into submission with titles, rules, and paperwork. But out here, on real land, with real boundaries and real law, you can't just slap a padlock on someone's life and expect no pushback. I didn't scream. I didn't vandalize. I didn't stoop to her level. I got smart. I used the system she loves so much to build a wall she now pays to cross. So let this be a lesson to all the mini dictators with clipboards out there. Don't mess with someone who knows the value of a property line and has a little patience. Because in the end, the gate stayed, the spikes stayed, and Karen, she pays me just to get through.